Strange, but true stories, tales from the light side, the dark side, and the other side. I'm Steve White. Alright, so this week may be a little bit more on the lighter side. We're taking a little break from the user-submitted paranormal stories and doing something a little different. Depending on your perspective, you either think that coincidences happen all the time, or that there is no such thing as coincidence and everything happens for a reason. Here are 6 stories about strange connections between people and places and things. Salem, Massachusetts. Known mostly for its witch trials in the late 1600s, it is also the home for one of the more amazing connections. In 1965, 4-year-old Roger Lausier was swimming in the waters off the coast of Salem. He got into trouble and was drowning. His cries for help were heard by many, but a woman named Alice Blaze pulled him from the water and saved Roger's life. 9 years later, in 1974, a now 13-year-old Roger is on the same beach. This time, Roger hears a man's pleas for help, and he notices him drowning. Roger plunges into the water, pulls the man to safety, and saves his life. Now that's a nice way to pay it forward, but when it is learned that the man he saved is the husband of Alice Blaze, the woman who saved Roger's life 9 years prior, then maybe one can see that life is not random events. Now across the ocean, if your name happens to be Hugh Williams and you're on a boat, you can consider yourself pretty safe. On December 5th, 1664, a ship sailing the Menai Strait off the coast of Wales sank. 81 of the 82 passengers on board died, except a man by the name of Hugh Williams. On December 5th, 1785, exactly 121 years later, another ship sailing the Menai Strait sank. Of the 60 on board, only one man survived. His name? Also Hugh Williams. A different man to be sure, but still the same name. In August of 1820, a small boat sailing the Thames capsized. All but one survived. The lone survivor? Another man named Hugh Williams. And if that wasn't enough, in July 1940, a British trawler was sunk by a German mine. This time, 2 men survived. A man named Hugh Williams and his nephew, also named Hugh Williams. So a few things you should know. First, Hugh Williams is not an uncommon name in this part of the world. If we were talking about people all named Parsons B. Cogswell or Wystan Hugh Alden, then it would make this story a little more crazy. Now, let's also be clear. The Menai Strait off the coast of Wales is known as a very dangerous place for ships. This is not to say that the 3 shipwrecks mentioned in this tale that happened in the Menai Strait, or the other one that happened on the Thames in a span of about 250 years, are the only 4 shipwrecks that happened during that time. There were hundreds upon hundreds of shipwrecks during that span, with many losing their lives and many others, not named Hugh Williams, surviving. So, a little strange and coincidental, yes, but maybe not as mystical as some have made it seem. But what about this one? In the United States, 2 women were issued the same Social Security number. A computer glitch was blamed for the mistake. But when the 2 were brought together in the same office to fix the situation, some strange facts emerged. Both women were named Patricia Ann Campbell. Both of their fathers were named Robert Campbell. They were both born on the same day, Thursday, March 13th, 1941. They married military men, just 19 days apart, in 1959. They each had 2 children who were the same ages. The parallels continued in that they both worked as bookkeepers and in their spare time liked to paint using oils. While that story has a lot of documented proof, this next one's dance with the truth is a little harder to pin down. In fact, this story is more than likely apocryphal, but it's cool nonetheless, so we're going with it. The story goes that in 1893, a man named Henry Ziegland ended a relationship with a young lady. The woman took the news very hard and took her own life. The woman's brother was in turn upset, blaming his sister's death on Henry, and he vowed revenge. He went to Henry's house and confronted him. The brother pulled his pistol, aimed at Henry, and fired. The shot grazed Henry's face, and the bullet embedded in a tree. But the brother, believing he had avenged his sister's death, then turned the gun on himself and committed suicide. But Henry was still very much in the land of the living. 20 years later, in 1913, Henry was clearing some trees on his land using dynamite to uproot the trees. The portable chainsaw was still about 8 years away from being developed, and still a few more years before it was available at the local Home Depot. The blast of one particular tree dislodged the 20-year-old bullet, and it hit Henry Ziegland in the head, killing him instantly. Talk about a magic bullet. Revenge may be sweet, but it can take its sweet time for sure. Another amazing story that took some time to develop took place in 2010 in England. Michael Dick had been searching for his daughter for the previous 10 years since he had separated from his wife. The only thing he knew was that his then 21-year-old daughter had moved to Sudbury, Suffolk. Michael decided to take his other 2 daughters on holiday and search there. Unfortunately, he didn't have any other information to go on, and the search came up empty. He went to the local paper and asked if they would aid in his search. A photographer from the Suffolk Free Press snapped a picture of Michael and his other 2 daughters and told them it would appear in the next edition. Sure enough, it worked. Lisa, the lost daughter, saw the picture of her father and her sisters in the paper. But upon closer inspection, and unknown to everybody at that moment, Lisa was also captured in the picture, walking with her mother on the left side of the photo. Lisa added that just a minute before the picture was taken, she and her mother was standing in the same exact place that her father and her sisters had had their picture taken. Lisa, now 31, had even mentioned to some friends a few days prior to the article and picture being published that she had been thinking about searching for her father. And who could imagine that after 10 years of searching and with few options remaining, a snapshot of an instant in time captured the entire family in the same frame. And finally, have you ever experienced your visualization manifesting nearly out of thin air? Call it the power of positive thinking, or manifesting your destiny, or, if you prefer, simply coincidence. Sir Anthony Hopkins can attest to the power of thought, or at least one of the freakiest coincidences I've ever heard of. In 1973, Hopkins had just been cast in the movie The Girl from Petrovka, and he was looking for a copy of the book written by George Pfeiffer. He searched all over London for a copy, but every bookstore he visited, he came up empty. Frustrated by his search, he headed to the train station to catch a ride back home. While waiting on the platform, Hopkins looked down at a bench and saw a copy of The Girl from Petrovka. And it was not just any copy, but the personal copy of author George Pfeiffer that had been stolen from a friend's car 2 years before. Hopkins was shocked to find the object of his long search here on the bench. He certainly obeyed the obvious gesture of the forces in the universe and picked up the book. And while not many remembered the book, the story of Hopkins' discovery is nearly unforgettable. This has been another Strange But True Stories. Have you ever had a strange occurrence happen to you that you just can't quite understand? Supernatural? Paranormal? Or just outside the scope of logical explanation? We would love to hear about it. Send your story to strangebutTrueStories2@gmail.com. Who knows? Your story may wind up here on this channel. Let us know what you thought of this series of stories in the comments, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks to those who have. It is greatly appreciated. I'm Steve White. Thanks for watching. Until next time.